Once she was the very picture of joy, running free beneath the golden sun, loved and cherished as if she were part of the family itself. But that life is gone now, swept away like a leaf in the wind, leaving only the shadow of what once was. Now she is alone, hungry, cold, and burdened with the desperate task of keeping her 7 tiny pups alive. Every step she takes is a fight against the darkness pressing in around her. Will she endure, or will she falter beneath the weight of it all and perish, her little ones fading with her into the night? Let us pray that God's light will find her, for surely every creature, no matter how small, is deserving of hope. The Miller family's home in the suburbs of Dallas, Texas, was a haven of love and laughter. Their cozy house, with its red brick exterior and neatly trimmed lawn, reflected the joy shared within its walls. At the heart of this happiness was Daisy, their beloved golden retriever. Her golden coat gleamed in the sunlight as she bounded through the backyard, her tail wagging like a metronome of pure delight. Daisy wasn't just a pet, she was family. Daisy had joined the Miller family as a puppy 2 years earlier, a gift for Emily's 6th birthday. Emily, with her curly blonde hair and bright blue eyes, had fallen in love with Daisy instantly. From the first day they met, the two were inseparable. Whether it was running in the yard, snuggling on the couch, or helping Emily with her homework by pawing at her notebook, Daisy brought magic to Emily's world. To Emily, Daisy was her best friend. Every morning, Daisy waited eagerly at the door as Emily got ready for school. She'd nuzzle her wet nose against Emily's hand, as if to remind her to hurry home. And when Emily returned, Daisy greeted her with boundless energy, twirling in circles of excitement. In the evenings, Daisy curled up at Emily's feet as the family watched TV or sprawled across Emily's bed, snoring softly as Emily drifted to sleep. Life was simple, life was good, until the day everything changed. It was a perfect summer evening, the kind where the golden hues of the setting sun painted the world in warmth. Emily had begged her parents to take Daisy to the nearby park, promising to keep a close eye on her. Mr. and Mrs. Miller agreed, and soon Daisy was leaping into the family car, her tail wagging with anticipation. At the park, Emily clutched Daisy's favorite red ball, laughing as she threw it again and again. Daisy raced across the open field with unbridled enthusiasm, retrieving the ball and dropping it at Emily's feet, her eyes shining with joy. The two of them were a picture of pure happiness, framed by the swaying trees and the faint hum of crickets in the background. As the sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the park, Emily threw the ball one last time. It bounced further than she intended, rolling to the edge of the woods. "Daisy, fetch!" Emily called, clapping her hands. Daisy darted after the ball, her golden coat shimmering in the fading light as she disappeared into the trees. Minutes passed, and Emily called out again, her voice tinged with worry. "Daisy, come here, girl." Silence. The laughter and joy that had filled the park faded into an eerie stillness. Emily's parents joined her, their voices rising as they called Daisy's name. Flashlights cut through the growing darkness as the family ventured into the woods, their hearts pounding. But Daisy was nowhere to be found. Far from her family, Daisy wandered deeper into the woods, confused and frightened. She sniffed the air, searching for Emily's scent, but the world around her was unfamiliar and overwhelming. The rustling of leaves and distant hoots of owls amplified her fear. Every shadow felt like a threat. Then through the darkness, Daisy saw a man. His clothes were dirty, his eyes sharp and calculating. Daisy's tail wagged hesitantly as she approached him, her natural trust in humans outweighing her fear. The man crouched, extending a hand with a piece of food. Hungry and exhausted, Daisy took a tentative step forward. Before she could react, the man slipped a rope around her neck and tightened it. Daisy yelped, trying to pull away, but the man's grip was firm. "Easy there, girl," he muttered, dragging her toward an old rusted van parked nearby. The air was thick with the smell of oil and decay as he shoved her into a cramped cage in the back. Daisy's golden coat, once pristine, now brushed against the cold, unforgiving bars. The door slammed shut, leaving Daisy in darkness. And so, Daisy's life abruptly veered from one of love and warmth to a path of fear and suffering, as the old van rattled to life and carried her away into the unknown. The van jolted to a stop after hours of rattling down unpaved roads. Daisy, frightened and disoriented, pressed herself against the cold metal bars of the cage. Her golden coat, once vibrant and soft, was now streaked with dirt and dampness. The man yanked the cage door open, his rough hands gripping her collar as he dragged her out. Daisy whimpered, but the man only muttered something incomprehensible and pulled her toward a decrepit barn. The air reeked of decay and neglect. Rows of rusted cages lined the barn walls, each one housing dogs of different breeds and sizes. Their barks and whines created a cacophony of despair that echoed off the splintered wooden beams. Daisy's ears flattened against her head as she was shoved into a small, filthy cage. The metal bars pressed against her body, leaving her barely enough space to turn around. "That'll do," the man grunted, slamming the cage door shut. Daisy's new reality was grim. The man who had taken her was part of an underground network of dog traffickers, and she was just another piece of merchandise to them. Within days, she was sold to a remote breeding farm in Louisiana, a place hidden from prying eyes where cruelty reigned unchecked. The farm was a nightmare. The other dogs, confined in their own cages, barked and whimpered incessantly. Their fur was matted, their eyes dull, and their spirits broken. The ground was littered with scraps of rotting food and old straw, the air thick with the stench of waste and decay. Daisy's name, the identity tied to her beloved family, was stripped away. The handlers began calling her Hope, a bitterly ironic moniker for the life she now endured. Hope was fed just enough to survive, a handful of kibble tossed carelessly into her cage, and her water bowl was often empty. Nights were the worst, with the chilling wind seeping through the cracks in the barn walls. She shivered in the dark, her body curled into itself for warmth. Hope spent countless hours staring at the bars of her cage, her mind wandering to memories of Emily. She could almost feel Emily's arms wrapped around her, hear the sound of her laughter, and smell the familiar scent of home. Those memories were all she had now, her only refuge from the harshness of her surroundings. Weeks turned into months, and Hope's life followed a relentless cycle of neglect and mistreatment. The handlers rarely acknowledged her beyond the basic necessities to keep her alive. They approached her cage with leashes and rough hands, forcing her into the breeding process that defined the farm's cruel purpose. Despite the fear and exhaustion, Hope remained gentle. Her kind eyes, though dulled by despair, still carried a glimmer of her former self. When other dogs barked aggressively, Hope stayed quiet. When handlers struck out in frustration, she endured without resistance. It wasn't submission, it was survival. Deep inside, she clung to the hope that her family might find her one day, even as the harsh reality of her circumstances made that dream feel impossibly distant. One day, as the handlers moved through the barn, Hope noticed a small group of new arrivals. Among them was a scruffy Labrador mix, his eyes wide with terror. He was shoved into the cage next to hers, his trembling body a clear sign that he was new to this hellish place. Hope turned toward him, her soft whimper breaking through the noise of the barn. It was a small gesture, but the Labrador stopped shaking for a moment, his eyes meeting hers. In that brief exchange, Hope offered the only thing she could, comfort. The Labrador's name, she overheard, was Max. Over the weeks that followed, Max began to adapt to the grim rhythm of the farm, but his spirit remained fragile. Hope became a source of quiet strength for him, her calm demeanor a contrast to the chaos around them. They never shared words, but their shared pain created a bond stronger than language. Max, like Hope, began to hold on to the faint glimmer of something better. Hope's resilience did not go unnoticed by the handlers. To them, her temperament made her valuable, a dog unlikely to resist or lash out. This marked her for more frequent use, her life defined by the farm's exploitative demands. Every time she was let out of her cage, her heart raced, not with fear for herself, but for what it might mean for her future pups. The barn's dreary monotony was occasionally broken by glimpses of the outside world. Through cracks in the wooden walls, Hope could see the swaying of trees and feel the faint breeze on her fur. Those brief moments reminded her of freedom, of the days when she had run alongside Emily in the park. But they were fleeting, snatched away as quickly as they came, One rainy afternoon, as the barn echoed with the usual chorus of barks and whimpers, Hope heard a new sound. Voices arguing near the entrance. The words were muffled, but the tone was unmistakably tense. A man, different from the usual handlers, appeared near her cage. He looked her over with a calculating expression, nodding slightly before walking away. It wasn't long before Hope was dragged from her cage and shoved into a small enclosure near the back of the barn. The space was just as cramped and filthy as before, but something about this change felt significant. It was a reminder that she wasn't seen as a living being but as a commodity shuffled around for profit. The other dogs in the barn seemed to sense her despair. Max, from his neighboring cage, whimpered softly as she was taken away, their silent bond a small but powerful reminder of her worth. Hope didn't resist, she couldn't. The handlers controlled every aspect of her existence. As night fell, Hope curled into herself, the straw beneath her offering little comfort. The rain outside tapped against the roof, its rhythm almost soothing in the stillness of the barn. She closed her eyes and let her mind drift to Emily. In her dreams they were together again, running through the park, the sun warming her golden coat. But when she woke, the harsh reality of her cage was waiting. Through it all, Hope clung to a sliver of faith. Somewhere in the vast, uncaring world, Emily might still be searching for her. That thought was enough to keep her alive, even as the walls of her cage seemed to close in tighter every day. Hope's life at the farm was one of endless suffering, yet she never lost the essence of who she was. She remained gentle, kind, and resilient, even as the world around her seemed determined to strip her of everything. In the darkest corners of the barn, surrounded by despair, Hope held on to the one thing no one could take from her, the memory of love. The air around the breeding farm was thick and oppressive, a constant reminder of the hopelessness that hung over its captives. Days bled into nights with no relief, the barking and whimpering of dogs filling the barn like an endless, mournful symphony. Hope had long since resigned herself to the rhythm of survival, enduring each day as it came. But everything changed on the night of the storm. It began with a distant rumble of thunder, a low growl that grew louder as the storm approached. The wind howled through the cracks in the barn's walls, whipping loose straw into chaotic spirals. The other dogs, sensing the change, grew restless in their cages. Lightning illuminated the barn in sudden, blinding flashes, revealing the desperation etched on every animal's face. For Hope, it was another reminder of the freedom she'd lost. The open fields and warm sun she once knew seemed further away than ever. But then it happened. A crack of lightning struck a tree near the barn, the deafening explosion sending splinters and sparks flying into the air. The chaos that followed was immediate. Dogs howled and barked in panic, their cages rattling as they clawed and bit at the bars. The handlers rushed into the barn, shouting orders and trying to restore control, but the storm's fury drowned out their voices. Hope, usually quiet and reserved, felt something stir deep within her. This was her chance. She had spent countless nights dreaming of escape, and now, amidst the chaos, she saw a glimmer of hope. Summoning every ounce of strength she had left, she began to push and claw at the rusted latch on her cage. The bolt, weakened by years of neglect, gave way with a sharp snap. The cage door swung open, and for the first time in what felt like an eternity, Hope stepped out. The barn was a flurry of movement, dogs bolted in every direction, their instincts driving them toward freedom. Hope's eyes darted to a corner of the barn where a litter of golden puppies huddled together, their tiny bodies trembling. Their mother had died just days earlier, leaving them orphaned and vulnerable. Hope hesitated for only a moment. They weren't her pups, but something inside her refused to leave them behind. She nudged the nearest one gently with her nose, her heart breaking at their frightened whimpers. "Come on," she seemed to urge them. "We have to go." One by one, the puppies clambered after her, their small paws slipping on the muddy floor. Hope led the way, her golden coat flashing in the storm's erratic light as she guided them through the barn's chaos. The wind and rain lashed at her face as she emerged into the open, but she didn't stop. Her instincts screamed at her to keep moving, to put as much distance as possible between them and the farm. The storm raged on as Hope and the puppies navigated the treacherous terrain. The rain turned the ground into a mire of mud, each step a struggle as they pushed forward. The puppies stumbled and fell, their tiny cries piercing the night. But Hope was there to nudge them back to their feet. Her body ached, and her paws were raw from the rough ground, but she couldn't let herself falter. She was their only chance. Hours passed, the storm showing no signs of relenting. Hope's muscles burned with exhaustion, and her breaths came in ragged gasps, but she pressed on. The trees offered little shelter, their branches swaying violently in the wind. Each step felt heavier than the last, the weight of the 7 puppies both a burden and a source of strength. She was no longer just a captive running for her life. She was a mother protecting her children. As dawn began to break, the storm finally started to wane. The rain softened to a drizzle, and the first rays of sunlight peeked through the clouds. But Hope had reached her limit. Her legs buckled beneath her, and she collapsed onto the damp forest floor. The puppies gathered around her, their tiny bodies seeking warmth against hers. Despite her exhaustion, Hope curled herself protectively around them, shielding them from the chill. She closed her eyes, her mind drifting to Emily. She could almost feel the warmth of Emily's embrace, hear her laughter as they played together in the park. It was that memory that had carried her through the darkest days, and it was that memory she clung to now. Hope knew she couldn't give up. Not yet. The forest was eerily quiet in the aftermath of the storm. Hope lay motionless, her body heaving with every labored breath. The puppies, too tired to move, huddled close to her, their tiny whimpers the only sound breaking the silence. Hours passed as they rested, the sunlight filtering through the canopy above, casting dappled patterns on the muddy ground. When Hope finally stirred, her body screamed in protest. Her legs felt like lead, and her paws were raw and bleeding. But the sight of the 7 puppies, their wide eyes filled with trust and innocence, gave her the strength to rise. She licked each of them gently, reassuring them with her presence. They had made it this far, and she wasn't going to let them down. Hope's nose twitched as she caught a faint scent on the breeze. Water. She nudged the puppies, urging them to follow as she limped toward the source. The sound of a trickling stream grew louder, and soon they came upon a small, clear creek. Hope lowered herself to the water's edge, lapping thirstily at the cool liquid. The puppies followed suit, their tiny tongues dipping into the stream as they drank their fill. The creek offered a brief respite, but Hope knew they couldn't stay long. The handlers would be searching for them, and she needed to find a safe place to hide. With renewed determination, she guided the puppies along the stream, the gentle flow of water masking their scent. As night fell, Hope finally found what she was looking for, a small hollow beneath the roots of a large oak tree. It was just big enough to shelter her and the puppies, and the thick foliage above provided some protection from the elements. Hope ushered the puppies inside, curling her body around them once again. For the first time since their escape, she allowed herself a moment of relief. They were safe, at least for now. The puppies' soft breathing filled the hollow as they drifted off to sleep, their tiny bodies nestled against Hope's. She lay awake, her ears pricked for any sign of danger. Her body ached and her mind raced with worry, but beneath it all was a flicker of hope. She had gotten them this far, and she would keep fighting for them, no matter what it took. As the moonlight filtered through the trees, casting a silver glow over the forest, Hope closed her eyes. She didn't know what the future held, but she knew one thing for certain. She would protect these 7 little lives with everything she had. For now, that was enough. The journey ahead would be fraught with challenges, but Hope had already defied the odds. She had broken free from captivity, faced the fury of the storm, and carried 7 fragile lives to safety. In the face of overwhelming darkness, she had become a mother by chance, driven by instinct and love. And as she lay there, surrounded by the warmth of the puppies she had saved, she allowed herself a single, fleeting thought. Maybe, just maybe, they would find freedom after all. The morning sunlight filtered softly through the trees, casting golden rays over the damp forest. The storm had passed, leaving behind a stillness that felt almost surreal. dew clung to the leaves, and the ground was a muddied mess of footprints and fallen branches. Near the edge of the forest, not far from Wilmington, North Carolina, Liam laced up his running shoes and set out on his usual morning jog. Liam, a man in his early 30s with an easygoing demeanor, had always enjoyed the solitude of these trails. They offered him a reprieve from the hustle of his daily life as a high school teacher. But today, his peaceful run would take a turn he never expected. As Liam rounded a bend in the trail, something unusual caught his eye. Just off the path, nestled beneath the roots of a large oak tree, was a huddled form. He slowed his pace, squinting to make out what he was seeing. At first he thought it was a pile of debris left by the storm, but then it moved. Cautiously, Liam stepped off the trail and approached. His breath caught in his throat as he realized what lay before him. A golden retriever, her fur matted with mud and debris, lay curled protectively around a cluster of tiny puppies. Her body was gaunt, her ribs visible through her coat, and she appeared utterly exhausted. The puppies, no more than a few weeks old, whimpered softly as they snuggled against her. "Oh my God," Liam whispered, dropping to his knees. He reached out tentatively, unsure if the dog would let him near. Her ears flicked and she opened her eyes halfway, staring up at him with a mixture of fear and fatigue. "Hey there, girl," Liam said gently, his voice low and soothing. "It's okay. I'm not going to hurt you." The golden retriever didn't move, but her eyes stayed on him. Liam could see the scars on her face and legs, the raw patches of skin that spoke of a life far from kind. He glanced at the puppies, their tiny bodies trembling as they pressed closer to their mother. The sight tugged at his heart. Liam knew he couldn't leave them there. The forest, though tranquil now, was no place for a dog in such a fragile state, let alone 7 helpless puppies. He rummaged through his small backpack, finding a spare shirt. Carefully, he scooped up the puppies one by one, wrapping them in the cloth to keep them warm. They whimpered in protest, their tiny faces peeking out from the makeshift bundle. When he turned his attention to the mother, she let out a low whine. Liam hesitated, worried she might be too weak to walk. He reached out slowly, placing a hand on her side. Her body was cold, her breathing shallow, but she didn't resist. "You're coming with me," Liam said firmly. He slipped his arms under her, lifting her carefully. The golden retriever was lighter than she should have been, her malnourished frame a stark reminder of whatever horrors she'd endured. The trek back to the trailhead was slow and cautious. Liam cradled the mother dog in one arm, while balancing the bundled puppies in the other. Every step felt precarious, the uneven ground still slippery from the storm, but Liam pressed on, driven by an overwhelming need to help. At home, Liam set up a makeshift bed in his living room using old blankets and pillows. He gently placed the mother dog down, then unwrapped the puppies and nestled them beside her. She immediately curled her body around them, her protective instincts kicking in despite her exhaustion. Liam sat back on his heels, surveying the scene. The living room, usually neat and tidy, now looked like an impromptu animal shelter. He didn't care. His focus was entirely on the fragile family in front of him. "You need a name," Liam murmured, looking at the golden retriever. For a moment, he considered calling her something playful or light-hearted, but the scars on her body and the resilience in her eyes told a different story. She had been through so much and yet had fought to protect these puppies. "Hope," he said softly. "That's what I'll call you, Hope." Unbeknownst to Liam, the name carried a cruel irony. It was the same name she had been given by the handlers at the breeding farm, a name that had once mocked her suffering. But now, in Liam's care, it became a symbol of something entirely different, a new beginning. As the day wore on, Liam made several calls. He contacted a local veterinarian, explaining the situation and arranging for an emergency visit. He also reached out to an animal rescue organization for advice. While he waited, he prepared food and water, setting them near Hope. She lifted her head weakly, sniffing the offerings, but it was clear she was too drained to eat much. The puppies, however, eagerly suckled at her side, their small cries filling the room. When the vet arrived, she was both impressed and horrified. "She's lucky you found her," the vet said as she examined Hope. Another day out there, and I don't think she would have made it. Liam felt a pang of guilt, even though he knew there was nothing more he could have done. The vet treated Hope's wounds, cleaned her up, and provided supplements to help her regain her strength. She checked over the puppies, ensuring they were healthy despite their rough start. "They're fighters," the vet said with a small smile, "just like their mom." That night, as Liam sat on the floor beside the makeshift bed, he watched Hope and her puppies sleep. The room was quiet except for the soft sound of their breathing. He felt an unexpected sense of peace mixed with determination. He didn't know where Hope had come from or what she'd been through, but he was certain of one thing: she was safe now. For the first time in a long while, Hope seemed to relax. Her body, though battered, stretched out slightly as she drifted into a deep sleep. The puppies curled against her, their tiny bodies rising and falling with each breath. Liam leaned back, a small smile tugging at his lips. "You're home now," he said softly. "Whatever happened before, it's over. You're safe here." And so Hope's journey took its first step toward healing, her life no longer defined by the pain of her past, but by the promise of a brighter future. Hope's first few days in Liam's care were a delicate balance of rest and healing. Her body, once emaciated and battered, began to respond to the steady supply of food and clean water. Her golden coat, though still matted and patchy, gained a subtle sheen as her strength returned. The 7 puppies, warm and secure, grew stronger each day, their tiny cries now replaced with playful yips as they nuzzled against their mother and tumbled over one another. Liam found himself completely immersed in their care. Every morning he would check on Hope, ensuring she had everything she needed. Despite her initial wariness, Hope began to show signs of trust. At first, it was a subtle softening of her gaze whenever Liam approached. Then came the small, hesitant wags of her tail as he gently spoke to her. The bond between them was forming, fragile but unmistakable. One sunny afternoon, Liam's neighbor Maria came by to help. A retired veterinarian with a kind heart and a sharp mind, Maria was known in their community as the go-to person for any animal-related concerns. When Liam had called her to explain Hope's situation, she immediately offered her expertise. Maria knelt beside Hope's makeshift bed, her experienced hands moving gently over the dog's body. "You've been through a lot, haven't you, sweet girl?" Maria murmured, her voice soothing. Hope flinched slightly at first, but as Maria continued, she seemed to relax under the careful touch. Maria turned to Liam, her expression thoughtful. "She's healing well, but these scars tell a story. The malnutrition, the pressure sores. This isn't just neglect. She's been through systemic abuse. My guess is she was part of something much worse than just being abandoned." Liam's jaw tightened. He had suspected as much, but hearing it confirmed made his stomach churn. "What kind of place would do this?" he asked, his voice heavy with anger and disbelief. Maria hesitated, then nodded toward the puppies. "A breeding operation, most likely, illegal and cruel. They take dogs like her, force them to breed, and treat the animals as nothing more than machines for profit. I've seen cases like this before, and they're always heartbreaking." Liam glanced at Hope, who was now licking one of her puppies clean, her eyes soft with maternal instinct. The thought of her being reduced to a tool in such a horrible place made his chest tighten. Over the weeks that followed, Liam and Maria worked together to help Hope and her puppies recover. Maria brought over supplies, vitamins, medicated shampoos, and even a small inflatable pool where the puppies could play. Her expertise proved invaluable, but it was her gentle presence that made the biggest difference. Hope, who had once cowered at every sudden movement, now allowed Maria to stroke her head and even examine her without resistance. Liam, meanwhile, devoted his evenings to building a proper outdoor enclosure for Hope and her pups. He wanted them to have space to run and play, but also to feel safe. The enclosure, nestled in a shaded corner of his backyard, became a haven for the little family. Watching the puppies scamper around and wrestle with one another brought a sense of joy that Liam hadn't felt in years. "You're turning my backyard into a puppy paradise," Liam joked one evening as Maria handed him a bag of chew toys. Maria chuckled. "Better than a quiet backyard with nothing to smile about, don't you think?" Liam smiled, realizing how much these dogs had brought into his life. Hope's resilience was inspiring, and the puppy's playful antics were a constant reminder of the simple joys in life. As Hope grew stronger, so did her trust in Liam and Maria. One evening, as Liam sat on the grass watching the puppies play, Hope approached him. She hesitated for a moment, then rested her head on his lap. The gesture was small but monumental. Liam gently ran his hand over her head, his touch light and reassuring. "You're safe now, Hope," he said softly, "I promise." From that moment on, Hope's fear seemed to dissipate little by little. She followed Liam around the house, her tail wagging tentatively whenever he called her name. For the first time in what felt like forever, she seemed at peace. One day, while cleaning the puppy's play area, Liam noticed something unusual. Among the items Maria had brought over was a small microchip scanner. Curious, Liam decided to scan Hope. As he ran the scanner over her neck, a beep sounded, followed by a string of numbers on the screen. "She's chipped," Liam muttered, his brow furrowing. He showed the results to Maria, who immediately began making calls to identify the chip's registration. Hours later, Maria returned with grim news. "The chip is registered to a breeder in Louisiana," she explained. "It's linked to a location that's been flagged before for illegal activity. The address is tied to reports of animal abuse, but no charges have ever stuck. It's a notorious place, Liam." Liam's hands clenched into fists. The image of Hope trapped in that barn, forced into a life of misery, flashed through his mind. He couldn't let it go. "We have to do something," he said firmly. "We can't let them keep doing this." Maria nodded, her expression equally resolute. "I'll reach out to some contacts I have in animal welfare organizations. If they can gather enough evidence, maybe we can shut them down for good." While Maria worked to connect with authorities, Liam focused on giving Hope and her puppies the best life he could. Each passing day brought new milestones. The puppies began to eat solid food, their tiny bodies growing stronger and more rambunctious. Hope's coat regained its golden shine, and her once dull eyes now sparkled with warmth. For Liam, the journey was transformative. He had taken in Hope and her puppies out of compassion, but they had given him something in return, a sense of purpose, a connection to something greater than himself. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and the puppies played in the yard, Liam sat beside Hope. She leaned into him, her head resting against his shoulder. He looked out at the scene before him, the laughter, the love, the hope, and felt a deep sense of gratitude. "We're going to make this right," he whispered, his voice steady with determination. And for the first time, Hope's future didn't feel uncertain. It felt bright. Months had passed since Hope's rescue, and her transformation was nothing short of miraculous. Her once battered body now radiated health, her golden coat gleaming under the sun. The puppies, who had grown from fragile bundles into playful, bounding balls of energy, brought joy and laughter to Liam's home. Each of them displayed their own personality, from the adventurous one who loved exploring every nook of the yard to the shy one who stuck close to Hope's side. But amid the happiness, Liam felt a quiet pull, a need to uncover Hope's past and perhaps help her close the chapter on the pain she had endured. Liam spent hours poring over the details Maria had helped him uncover. The microchip led to a tangled web of records that painted a grim picture of the breeding operation Hope had escaped. But what caught Liam's attention was a single, seemingly unrelated report filed just 7 months earlier, a missing golden retriever named Daisy. The family, the Millers, had reported her disappearance near a park in Texas. The details were sparse, but the timeline and description matched Hope eerily well. Could it be? Liam wondered aloud, glancing at Hope, who was lying in the grass as her puppies played around her. He reached out to Maria, who immediately recognized the significance of the report. Together, they contacted an animal rescue organization that specialized in reuniting lost pets with their families. Emails were sent, phone calls made, and after several tense days, they received a response. The Millers were still searching for Daisy, even after all these months. The Millers lived in a quiet suburb in Dallas, Texas. Emily, now 13, had been devastated by Daisy's disappearance. The memory of her beloved golden retriever was fresh, and she often found herself glancing out the window, hoping for a glimpse of her dog bounding across the yard as she once had. When the Millers received the call, disbelief quickly gave way to cautious hope. "It can't be," Emily's mother whispered, her voice trembling. But Emily clung to the possibility with all her heart. "It has to be her," she insisted, her voice resolute. The arrangements were made, and soon the Millers were on their way to Wilmington, North Carolina, their hearts racing with anticipation. The day of the reunion dawned bright and clear. Liam stood in his backyard, nervous yet hopeful. Hope sat beside him, her head tilted as if she could sense something significant was about to happen. The puppies, oblivious to the weight of the moment, chased each other around the yard. When the Millers arrived, Emily was the first to step out of the car. Her eyes widened as they landed on Hope. Tears streamed down her face as she whispered, "Daisy?" Hope froze. For a moment she seemed unsure, her eyes scanning Emily's face. Then, as if a switch had flipped, her tail began to wag furiously. She bounded toward Emily, her body language overflowing with recognition and joy. "Daisy!" Emily cried, dropping to her knees as Hope leapt into her arms. The two embraced, Emily sobbing into Hope's golden fur. "I missed you so much," she whispered. Hope licked her face, her own sounds of joy mingling with Emily's tears. The rest of the Millers joined in, their disbelief melting into overwhelming happiness. Hope's gentle nature shone as she moved between them, her tail wagging non-stop. It was as if she had been waiting for this moment her entire life. After the emotional reunion, Liam led the family into his home to meet the puppies. Emily's eyes lit up as the tiny golden bundles tumbled over one another, their playful antics drawing laughter from everyone. Hope stayed close to Emily, her gaze soft and protective as if she understood that her journey had come full circle. Liam shared everything he knew about Hope's life since her disappearance. The Millers listened intently, their emotions swinging from sorrow at the suffering she had endured to gratitude for the kindness Liam and Maria had shown. They thanked him profusely, their words heartfelt and sincere. "She's not just Daisy anymore," Liam said softly. "She's a survivor and a mother." Emily nodded, her hand resting gently on Hope's head. "She's still my Daisy, but now she's so much more." The Millers decided to adopt all the puppies to ensure they found loving homes. With the help of Liam and Maria, they carefully selected families from the rescue organization's network, ensuring each puppy would be cherished. Emily, however, couldn't bear to part with all of them. She convinced her parents to keep one, a playful little male with a white patch on his chest, whom she named Charlie. As for Liam, the idea of saying goodbye to the puppies was bittersweet. He had grown attached to them, their mischievous antics filling his days with laughter. But one puppy in particular had stolen his heart, the shy one who always seemed to stay close to Hope. When the time came to place the puppies in their new homes, Liam made his decision. "I think I'll keep this little one," he said, scooping up the shy pup. "She's already a part of my family." Liam named her Luna, a nod to the moonlight that had guided Hope and her pups through the darkest night of their lives. Luna quickly settled into her new home, forming a special bond with Liam that mirrored the trust her mother had shown him. The day the Millers departed with Daisy, now officially renamed Hope, and her puppies, was filled with tears and smiles. Emily hugged Liam tightly, her gratitude evident in her tearful words. "Thank you for bringing her back to us," she said. "You gave us a miracle." Liam nodded, his own eyes misty. "She gave me one too," he replied. As the Millers drove away, Hope sat in the back seat, her head resting on Emily's lap. She gazed out the window, her golden coat catching the sunlight. The road ahead was unknown, but it was filled with the promise of love, safety, and a future free from pain. For Liam, life returned to a quieter rhythm, but the memories of Hope and her puppies remained vivid. Luna became his constant companion, her playful energy and quiet loyalty a source of joy. Every time he looked at her, he thought of Hope and the journey that had brought them all together. Hope's story, once filled with suffering, had transformed into one of resilience, love, and second chances. Through the kindness of strangers, the strength of family, and the unbreakable bond between humans and animals, she had found her way back to the life she deserved. And in doing so, she reminded everyone who crossed her path that even in the darkest of times, hope is never truly lost. As we reach the end of Hope's incredible journey, it's hard not to be moved by the powerful lessons her story teaches us. Hope wasn't just a dog. She was a reflection of resilience, forgiveness, and the beauty of second chances. Through her journey, we see the undeniable bond between humans and animals, a connection that speaks to the heart of compassion and God's love for all His creations. Hope's story reminds us that even in the darkest times, there is always light. She endured unimaginable pain, but found her way to love, healing, and a new beginning. Her scars, rather than symbols of defeat, became marks of survival, and in her reunion with the Millers, we're reminded of the importance of faith and perseverance. Just as Emily never gave up on finding Daisy, God never gives up on us, no matter how far we stray. This story is also a call to action for all of us. Hope's plight wasn't unique. There are countless animals in need of rescue, love, and a second chance. Her journey challenges us to look around and ask, what can I do to make a difference? Whether it's adopting a pet, volunteering at a shelter, or simply showing kindness to those in need, every small act matters. If Hope's story touched your heart, let it inspire you to take action. Share this story with your friends and family to spread the message of love and resilience. Comment below with your thoughts or share your own experiences of hope and second chances. Let's create a community of kindness and compassion, one that reflects the love God has for all His creations. Together, we can be the light that transforms darkness into hope.